Yo, I don't even know where to start with this one, because I'm still shaking from what I watched happen live on television yesterday, and I've been going back and forth about whether to even make this video, because part of me feels like what I witnessed was so chaotic, so unscripted, so raw, that maybe it needs a day to breathe. But then I realized, no, this can't wait, because the basketball world is moving fast, and what happened on First Take yesterday involving Maxey and the Golden State Warriors is the kind of thing that changes the trajectory of a franchise. And I need to break this down for you right now while it's still fresh, because there are details in this one that are gonna blow your mind. Hey, what's up everyone? Real quick before we get into everything, that like button is literally what determines if this reaches hundreds or thousands of fans. Takes 1 second, but makes a huge impact on the channel's growth. Just smash that like button right now. It's the easiest thing you can do, but honestly the biggest way to support this content. Every single like pushes this further, so hit it now. So let me take you back to the beginning of the segment because the context matters a lot here. First Take comes on, and one of the main topics is the Warriors coaching situation, right? Because we've been hearing all the reports about Steve Kerr potentially being done, whether that's him stepping away voluntarily, or whether there's a mutual parting of ways, and the names that have been floated as replacements. Todd Golden, Andre Iguodala, Mike Brown, assistant coaches from around the league. And the conversation naturally evolves into, okay, if the Warriors are going to be making a coaching change, that signals that they're also probably thinking about roster changes because a new coach means a new direction, and a new direction means potentially new players. And Stephen A. Smith starts talking about what the Warriors need to remain competitive, and he makes the argument that regardless of who coaches this team, the fundamental problem is the same. They need a dynamic young guard who can eventually take the torch from Steph Curry, because Steph is getting older. That's just reality. And the Warriors window with the current core is closing, and if you're going to transition into the next era, you need to identify who your next franchise player is going to be. And Stephen A. says the name that makes the most sense, the name that fits the Warrior system perfectly, the name that could not only help them compete right now, but also carry the franchise into the future, is Maxey. And this is where I need you to pay attention, because what happens next is something that I don't think anyone could have predicted, and I'm including the people in that studio because they were just as shocked as the rest of us. So Shannon Sharpe picks up on the Maxey to Golden State thread, and he starts building the case, right? And Shannon's case is actually really well constructed because he talks about the system fit first. And that's the most important piece of this puzzle, because the Warriors have always been about movement off the ball, spacing, reading the defense in real time, making quick decisions, and playing with pace. And who does that sound like? That sounds exactly like Maxey, right? Because Maxey's game is predicated on all of those things. He moves without the ball, he spaces the floor, he reads defenses at an elite level, he makes quick decisions, and he plays with a pace that very few guards in the league can match. And Shannon says, imagine Maxey in that Warriors system, running off Draymond Green screens with Steph Curry spotting up on the weak side. Imagine the defensive nightmares that creates, because you can't help off Curry to stop Maxey, and you can't help off Maxey to stop Curry, and all of a sudden, the Warriors go from a team that's been searching for that secondary scoring punch to a team that has arguably the most potent backcourt in the NBA. And Stephen A. is nodding along vigorously, saying, absolutely. And he adds the succession piece, which is huge because everyone knows that Curry is going to retire at some point, and when he does, the Warriors need someone who can step into that role. And Maxey isn't just a placeholder, he's a legitimate franchise cornerstone. He's averaging over 25 points a game. He's an all-star caliber player. And he's young enough that you could build around him for the next 8 to 10 years, which gives the Warriors a seamless transition from the Curry era to the Maxey era without having to go through a painful rebuild. And Molly Karam is moderating this, and she's doing her thing, asking about the salary cap implications, what the Sixers would demand in return, whether Mike Dunleavy Jr. And the Warriors front office would be willing to part with the assets necessary to make a deal like this happen. And it's a great basketball discussion. All three of them are bringing real analysis, real knowledge, and real passion to the topic. And then everything stops because of what the production team sees on social media. And I need you to understand how this went down, because the sequence of events is crucial. The producer in the back, who's monitoring Instagram and Twitter and all the platforms, spots a new Instagram story from Tyrese Maxey, and they immediately flag it, and it gets to the control room, and from the control room to Molly's earpiece. And Molly interrupts the conversation mid-sentence and says, "We need to stop for a moment. I'm told we have something significant to show you on screen." And the producer puts up Maxey's Instagram story, and the studio goes quiet. And here's what everyone is looking at. It's a photo, and it takes a second to register what you're looking at because it's a little bit artsy, the way some of these players post their stories with filters and angles. But when you focus on it, you realize it's a photo of a sunset, and the sunset is clearly taken from what looks like a rooftop or a high vantage point overlooking a body of water. And in the foreground, there's a railing, and Maxey's hand is visible holding a drink. And the aesthetic is very California, very West Coast, golden hour vibes. And the caption on the story has a single emoji, a bridge emoji. And next to the bridge emoji, there's a word that appears to say golden, but part of it is cut off by the edge of the screen. And bro, when Stephen A saw that bridge emoji and the word golden, he lost his mind. And I mean lost his mind. Like, I've never seen Stephen A react to anything the way he reacted to this. He jumped out of his chair, literally jumped, and started pointing at the screen saying, "Do you see it? Do you see it? That is the Golden Gate Bridge. He's in San Francisco right now. That is the Golden Gate Bridge with the word golden." Molly, tell me that's a coincidence. I dare you to tell me that's a coincidence. And Shannon was already on his feet too, and he goes, "Stephen A, I don't need a detective. I don't need the FBI. I don't need nobody. This man just told us everything we need to know. A bridge emoji plus the word golden while we're talking about the Golden State Warriors? This is not subtle. This man is hitting us over the head with it." And Molly is sitting there, and you can see she's trying to process this in real time, trying to maintain her composure, trying to be the journalist in the room, and she says, "Okay, I need everyone to take a breath here. We're looking at a sunset photo with a bridge emoji. That could be any bridge in any city in the world, and the word golden could refer to a lot of things. Golden hour, golden sunset. We cannot definitively say this is about the Golden State Warriors." And Stephen A literally turns to camera and goes, "America, I ask you, does this woman not see what we all see? Does she not see the bridge? Does she not see the word golden? Does she not see the California sunset while we are on live national television discussing Tyrese Maxey and the Golden State Warriors?" And I'm at home watching this, and I have to tell you, Molly had a point, right? In isolation, a sunset photo with a bridge emoji could mean a lot of things. But the timing is what kills me, because this was posted while First Take was literally on the air discussing Maxey to Golden State. And if you believe that's a coincidence, then I don't know what to tell you, because that level of coincidence doesn't exist in the NBA. Players are too media savvy. They know exactly when shows are airing. They know exactly what's being discussed about them. And for Maxey to post a story with those specific visual elements at that specific moment feels incredibly intentional. And then Shannon takes it a step further, because Shannon starts looking at the background of the photo more closely, and he says, "Wait, hold on, zoom in on the water in the background." And the production team zooms in, and Shannon goes, "That water, that looks like the bay. That looks like the San Francisco Bay to me." And Stephen A agrees and says, "You're right, Shannon. That is not the Atlantic Ocean. That is not the Delaware River. That is the Pacific Coast." And even Molly at this point pauses and says, "I will admit the water in the background does appear consistent with a West Coast location." And that's the first crack in Molly's armor. And Shannon pounces on it immediately, saying, "See, even Molly's starting to come around because the evidence is overwhelming." And look, I want to talk about why the Warriors make so much sense for Maxey, because the Instagram story is one thing, but the basketball fit is what really makes this compelling. Because if you're Maxey and you're thinking about where you could maximize your potential, where you could play in a system that amplifies your strengths, where you could learn from one of the greatest players to ever live and eventually inherit the keys to a historic franchise, Golden State is the perfect answer. And think about the system, right? The Warriors' motion offense is built for a player like Maxey because it requires a guard who can make decisions in real time, who can read the defense and react, who can come off screens and either shoot, pull up, or drive, and who can play with pace. And that's Maxey's game in a nutshell. He's one of the best in the league at reading screens and making the right decision in the moment. And in Golden State's system, with all that movement and all that screening action, he would be absolutely devastating. And then you factor in playing alongside Steph Curry, and the possibilities become almost unfair, because Curry's gravity is unlike anything else in basketball history. Defenses have to account for him at all times, which means Maxey would get cleaner looks, easier driving lanes, and more one-on-one opportunities than he's ever had in Philadelphia, where the offense has often been structured around Embiid's post-ups and half-court sets, and Maxey in a system where the ball moves, where the players move, where the pace is high. That's a version of Maxey that we haven't fully seen yet, and it could be the best version. And from the Warriors' perspective, they solved their biggest problem, which is, what does the future look like? Because right now, the future is uncertain. The Curry era is winding down, Klay is gone, the dynasty core is aging, and the young players they've drafted haven't all developed the way they hoped. And bringing in Maxey gives you an immediate answer to the question of who leads this team next. And it gives Curry a co-star for his remaining years that can actually take some of the burden off of him and extend his career. Because if Maxey is handling more of the primary scoring and creation, Curry can play more off-ball, which is where he's most efficient and most devastating. And that partnership, for however long Curry has left, could actually produce another championship run while also setting up the franchise for long-term success after Curry retires. And Mike Dunleavy Jr. was the Warriors GM. He's a smart executive. He understands that the window to compete with Curry is closing, but he also understands that you can't just blow it up and tank, because that's not who the Warriors are. And finding a player like Maxey who helps you compete now and represents the future, that's the holy grail of NBA roster construction. And if Maxey is signaling through Instagram that he's interested in being in the Bay Area, then Dunleavy has to be making that phone call to Philadelphia right now. And then came the moment that turned this whole segment from interesting to absolutely historic, because about 20 minutes into the analysis of the photo, the sunset, the bridge emoji, the word golden, the water in the background, the producer gets an update and sends it to Molly's earpiece. And Molly goes on air and says, "I have an update. Tyrese Maxey has deleted the Instagram story, and I need you to understand what happened in that studio when those words came out of her mouth, because Stephen A. Smith had a reaction that I think will live forever in First Take history. He stood completely still for about 3 seconds, which for Stephen A. is an eternity, and then he slowly turned to Shannon and said, 'Did you hear what she just said?' And Shannon nodded, and Stephen A. turned to camera and in the most measured voice I've ever heard from him said, 'Ladies and gentlemen, what you just witnessed was a man revealing his intentions to the world and then being told by someone in his organization to cover his tracks.' The deletion of that Instagram story is the single most telling piece of evidence we have received today, because you do not delete something unless it meant something. You do not delete a random sunset photo. There is no reason to delete a random sunset photo, unless that photo was not random, unless that photo was a message, and unless someone realized that the message was received and understood and panicked. And that's what happened here. Someone panicked and they called Tyrese Maxey and they told him to delete it. And by deleting it, he confirmed everything that we have been discussing for the last 30 minutes. And Shannon just sat there nodding slowly and said, 'Stephen A.' You know what the funniest part about all this is? The funniest part is that if he had just left it up, nobody would have been sure. We would have debated it. We would have gone back and forth. We would have said, maybe it's a coincidence, maybe it's nothing. But by deleting it, he removed all doubt, because the deletion is the confession. And even Molly, and this is the moment that really got me, even Molly, who had been the voice of caution the entire segment, even Molly said, "I have to acknowledge that I cannot come up with a satisfactory explanation for why that story was deleted. If there was an innocent explanation, the logical move would be to leave it up, and if asked about it, simply say it was a sunset photo." The fact that it was removed suggests that someone believed it could be interpreted in a way that they did not want it to be interpreted, and that is noteworthy. And when Molly conceded that point, Stephen A. and Shannon both looked at each other, and you could see it in their faces. They knew they had just been part of something that people were going to be talking about for a long time. And they were right, because here I am making this video about it, and you're watching it, and millions of people are discussing it online, and the whole narrative around Tyrese Maxey and the Golden State Warriors has shifted because of one Instagram story and one deletion. And here's what I want to leave you with, because I think this is the most important takeaway from everything that happened yesterday. The NBA is a league of signals. And the players who are unhappy or who are exploring their options don't come out and say it publicly. They communicate through channels like Instagram, through what they wear, through who they follow, through the music they play, and through the timing of their posts. And Maxey's story yesterday was a masterclass in subtle communication, even if it was unintentional. Even if he didn't plan for it to blow up the way it did, the content of that story, the timing, and most importantly, the deletion paint a picture that is impossible to ignore. And the Warriors should be paying very close attention, because if Maxey wants to be in the Bay, if he sees himself in that system alongside Curry, if he envisions himself as the future of the Golden State Warriors franchise, then this is the kind of opportunity that doesn't come around often, and you have to pursue it aggressively because players of Maxey's caliber don't become available every year, and the signal he sent yesterday, whether intentional or not, was loud and clear. And now it's up to the Warriors to respond, and I think they will, because Mike Dunleavy Jr. didn't get to where he is by ignoring signals, and when a player of Maxey's caliber hints that he might want to be with your organization, you pick up the phone and you start making it happen, and that's exactly what I expect to see in the coming weeks behind the scenes. And we're gonna be all over this story as it develops, so make sure you hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and let me know in the comments what you think about all of this.